everyone and welcome back to Typical City. I think it would be foolish to start coming out with outrageous adjectives to describe this game as seismic, as title decider, monumental, of paramount importance. Yeah, I think we all know that. I think that's been fully established by the majority of football fans across the world, because I think this is the one of the two teams that Manchester City actually have genuine jeopardy going into the game, because I do think we've made football a science lately. I think Manchester City Football Club have almost bored the rest of the Premier League, not to the detriment of Manchester City fans, because I'm absolutely basking in Manchester City's glory. The rest of the Premier League have to catch up. You know, they have to catch up. Liverpool and Arsenal are doing an unbelievable job at maintaining Manchester City standards and just about hanging on to our coattails. And right now, Liverpool are doing an even better job than that, because they currently sit top of the Premier League. And if we go there and beat them, you wonder what the psychological damage will do to Liverpool. The psychological damage that, you know, the envious eyes of Arsenal fans will, and the players themselves, of course, they'll be watching that game. The damage that it could do to the rest of the Premier League, everybody included, knowing if City go to Anfield, a place that we rarely pick up anything. It's normally a guaranteed loss lately. Other than that great win with Phil Foden putting an unbelievable performance when no one was in the ground, unfortunately, at the time. But still, you're wondering whether the atmosphere is going to play a key part in that. What I would like to happen is no violence from the fans. That would be nice. That would be really, really good. Do you reckon we can do that? Go into the worst place, the worst footballing place on earth, Anfield. You know, that small, very small minority of absolute clowns that rock up to Liverpool every week. And, you know, when City are there as well, they seem to get the bricks out, get the bottles out. You know, it's not just for drinking these bottles, by the way. It's for throwing at the Manchester City team bus, of course, as well, and abusing the players beyond recognition. And that goes with City fans as well, by the way. We do not need to lower ourselves to their standards. Let's leave their bathrooms alone. Let's not rip up their seats and destroy their bathrooms. Can we keep it civil, and can we keep it about football? That would be nice. And that also goes onto the pitch as well, because I'm a bit fed up with the amount of Liverpool games that are being decided by refereeing decisions as well. In particular, games that City seem to be involved in. Going back to Anfield, the Bernardo Silva handball, Fabinho goes up the other end. You only need to go to the last fixture. Akanji's foul on Alisson when Akanji puts his hand on his shoulder. I mean, he flopped it. It was limp. He put his limp hand on his bloody shoulder like that, and Alisson goes up, grabs it. He had the ball in his hands, by the way, and by the time he's coming down, he then decides to drop the ball. Diaz, that would have been 2-0, game over, and Liverpool would have one less point than they would have, and we would have 2 more points on the board, meaning we would be top of the league right now had that game been refereed accurately. Unfortunately, the game before this as well, that wasn't refereed accurately, unfortunately, to the benefit of Liverpool once again. Shock, horror, dun dun dun. Liverpool benefit from another refereeing decision. Hardly surprising there. Other end of the pitch, Nottingham Forest had the ball. A Liverpool player goes down with a head injury, and referee blows his whistle, stops the game, and gives the ball back to Liverpool, of course, and they go up the other end and score. Of course, there was plenty of football that took place between those two moments, but that football would never have taken place had the referee made the right decision. 1 minute later, up the other end, and a 99th minute, Darwin Núñez win it, and again, 2 more points that Liverpool wouldn't have, meaning they will be even further behind Manchester City right now. Of course, there will be nitpickers. I'm sure you're going to jump in the comments, because I know I've seemed to triggered quite a few Scousers in my last video. I'm sure you're getting giddy with your fingers right now, typing in the comments as I'm speaking. Like, well, what about this decision? What about this decision? I'm sure there was benefiting decisions for Manchester City, and they say it evens itself out, but it always seems to be in the big games where Liverpool get these decisions against Manchester City as well. It would be nice, you know. Let's send Klopp off with a fair game, shall we? Because it's bye-bye to Jurgen Klopp. See you later. Let's see what Liverpool can do next season. This is their last hurrah, is it? To try and get something out of this season. They've got themselves a little League Cup. Fair play to them, you know. Haven't got any big ones yet, you know, the ones that we like to get. The trebles, things like that. The Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup. All owned by Manchester City, of course. Liverpool looking to take that off us, but there is no denying. Banter aside, Liverpool are a force, an absolute force to be reckoned with. They've certain players have found their feet. Darwin Núñez springs to mind, for example. But I'm telling you right now, there is one Manchester City player that is going to win this game, and it's a very surprise Manchester City player that I don't think anyone's going to be talking about. in terms of what Manchester City can do to damage Liverpool, use their emotion against them. Those easily, like, giddy individuals in that Liverpool side who all run round sometimes like headless chickens, to be honest. The emotion can get the better of them. The Anfield crowd can pump that energy onto the pitch to the point where their players go round like headless chickens, and you can use that to your advantage when you've got players like Manchester City have. Technical players that are composed, relaxed on the ball, and can fire a beautiful ball that can split midfield wide open, and parting of the Red Sea can start to happen, because we did it at the Etihad. We bossed them at the Etihad, and they stole a point from that game. An absolute robbery that was, because we bossed that game in the 1-1 draw. And it's going to be really interesting. I think the middle of the park is going to be the big factor as well, because their midfield is good, but is it as good as your Phil Fodens, your Bernardo Silvas, your Kevin De Bruynes, your Rodris, John Stones, going up against Szoboszlai, Endo, McAllister? They don't cut it. They don't cut it compared to those guys, but it's elsewhere that the game could also be won. There's going to be little battles happening all over this football pitch, and it's going to be a monumental game. And there's that adjective that I tried to promise to give you, but I've given it you. I've given you an adjective because it is. Let's have it right. It really, really is. Now, team news. Liverpool have obviously struggled a lot more than Manchester City lately with injuries, with Alisson. I've written down Twatty McFlappy Lips here. I think you all know who that is. Currently in the press, giving it one of them, giving it some of that. Yotta, not even going to tell you who it was. I'll let you figure it out. Get in the comments below who you think Twatty McFlappy Lips actually is. You'll know. I'm sure you'll know. You'll figure it out. Yotta, injured. Matip, injured. Thiago, injured. Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, Bajcetic. Konate is reported fine, though. Prior to Konate, all injured. Salah, of course, is back, which is terrible, terrible news, because he always seems to put in a worldie of a performance against Manchester City. That goal of the season contender, was it 2 seasons ago? Incredible. That long ball over the top that Cancelo with his suicidal defending against Mo Salah, leaping in at the halfway line. One long ball over the top, and it's these little details, these little moments that Liverpool live off. Very much like Man United, to be honest. That a team that almost bows down to the possession of Manchester City and accepts there and submits to the possession of Manchester City, knowing, okay, we can't compete with you. We cannot compete with you when it comes to possession, but they can compete with us in terms of individual talent. These special moments that come from special players like Mo Salah in particular, of course, and there's been so many games that have been decided by silly little details from a City perspective, mistakes, refereeing decisions, and moments of brilliance. There's never really been a Liverpool win where they've fully deserved that win. They dominated from start to finish, or for the majority of the game, they bossed the midfield, they controlled the ball, they were the better footballing side throughout the game. I've never really felt like that against Liverpool, yet they always seem to get a result one way or another, and it's usually through little details in the game that we have to be on it. We have to be absolutely on it, and if we do not make mistakes, it gives us every single advantage going forward. We've seen a lot of mistakes in this Manchester City side this season, and it has been infuriating to watch at times, mostly in the Premier League as well, because I feel like in the Champions League we've been pretty much impeccable. Will Erling Haaland have his shooting boots on? That's a big factor to worry about, because lately he's been hot and cold, but lately mostly hot. He did obviously miss that absolutely, and within the 90 minutes in the Manchester derby as well, don't forget, that sitter in the first half was an awful miss, but he gets his goal at the end of the game, sort of rectified the situation. But against Liverpool, is he going to get that second chance? Will the game already be decided by that point? Because if he gets that same type of chance against Liverpool, he has to put it in the back of the net. We cannot afford any missed chances against this Liverpool defence, with Konate likely to be okay, reported as fine, which is a massive blow from my hopes, because him and Van Dijk in the middle of the pitch is worrying. Will they play Gomez in midfield again? I doubt it. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of Manchester City, Grealish is the only almost definite out, pretty much definitely out. And Doku is reported as 50-50, and that is the one area of the pitch that I am completely undecided on. That left-hand side has become a little bit of a problem for City lately. We've seen Núñez there, we've seen Grealish there, we've seen Alvarez there in the last game. Doku there, of course. Bernardo Silva's drifted out there. Even Kevin De Bruyne in the last game had little 3-minute spells, 5-minute spells where he went over there. And there was almost a process of recycling and the ball between triangles of players and rotating in that position and fluid movement from multiple players on that left-hand side without a fixed player that was like holding his hand in the air. I am the left-sided player in this team, where we do tend to have a right-sided player at all times. But this year, it's a side of the pitch that's not really been cemented down by any one individual, whether definitely injuries have played a part in that, with Grealish and Doku both suffering with injuries. And because of that, maybe that's why we've not really seen an out-and-out left-sided player that's got that role and called it their own, which is interesting. But now, the one player that I think is going to decide this for Manchester City, and brace yourself for this, I think it's Ederson, alongside Rodri. I think it's mostly Rodri, but I think Ederson has got a massive, massive role to play in deciding this fixture. And I'll tell you why in a minute, because I'm going to give you my predicted starting 11s for both Liverpool and Manchester City right now. So starting with Liverpool, Kelleher obviously in goal with Alisson still being out. He's stepped up though, hasn't he? He's absolutely stepped up. I was rubbing my hands together at the idea of Alisson not being in this starting 11 of Liverpool's for quite some time. And that hole has been filled very, very well by Kelleher. He's looked solid, he's looked composed, his distribution has looked all right. Yeah, annoying to be honest, because losing Alisson is a big, big blow for them. It's kind of City's situation, to be honest, because if we were to lose Ederson, I feel like Ortega is more than good enough to step up to the plate and fill that void. Elsewhere in the back four, it starts to pick itself with all the injuries that they've got, to be honest. But Conor Bradley, who is another player that I think is their weak spot. Let's see how he handles the emotion, because he's fresh-faced, young, spring chicken in the side. Whoever's on that left side for Manchester City, run at him. He looks a good player. Let's have it right. He looks like a good player, but, so young with very few top-tier minutes, Premier League minutes under his belt. Can that lack of experience be exposed in this game? That's one area that I think we can do that, but it's probably the one area of Manchester City that is our weakest spot as well, our left side of the pitch. So it could even itself out, which is infuriating, to be honest. But in the middle, Konate, alongside him, Virgil van Dijk, and on the left, Robertson, who is back, and a horrible little cheat on his day, isn't he? A little shit face he is. Can't stand the guy. In front of them, Endo, who's quietly another player that's just a signing that gets better by the week, doesn't he? He's been really, really good for them in front of them. Szoboszlai in front of them with McAllister there. He does the simple stuff incredibly well, and he's got a great engine on him. Not the quickest. That's an issue to his game. I don't think his speed can be exposed at times. Can Phil Foden and De Bruyne's lost a yard of speed as well since he's come back from injury. But something we can look at is their midfield. I think it's not their strongest aspect. The front three, though, absolutely is. Darwin Núñez, who is absolutely firing on all cylinders this season, as you'd expect for 85 million, to be honest. Compare that to Erling Haaland's 55 million. Pound for pound, penny for penny. I know who I'm picking, but Darwin Núñez finding the back of the net really, really well. I'm going to go with Luis Diaz on the left and Mohamed Salah on the right. Manchester City, Ederson, who is going to have a huge role in this game, and I'll get onto that in a second. Ruben Diaz in front of him. Kyle Walker, just for the speed, he's been playing well for me, really well lately. Still getting a lot of criticism off City fans that I feel like the immature ones, the lack of understanding of what he's actually doing, highlighting things that don't need highlighting. I think the treatment that Kyle Walker's received from City fans has been nothing short of a disgrace, to be honest, this season. But I think he's been great, personally. I think he's been fantastic, and Pep Guardiola keeps picking him. So that's who you're arguing with, those that don't have, like, Kyle Walker in the starting 11. You're disagreeing with Pep Guardiola, not me. Pep. Alongside Ruben Diaz, Nathan Ake has to be Nathan Ake, because Gvardiol, I like the future. The future is very bright with Josko Gvardiol. Absolutely. But he's got a mistake in his locker. He's finding his feet. He's having that first season bedding into the Manchester City side. Nathan Ake, none of that. Absolute solid as a rock. Can he continue that great vein of form that he's been throughout the entire season, in truth? A big blow for Akanji, to be honest, because I don't think he gets in this starting 11, unfortunately. But he too is one of our best defenders this season. But he isn't going to get ahead of Ruben Diaz or Kyle Walker for this particular game, because Walker's attributes are more needed. And in front of them, in midfield, who would you rather have? John Stones or Manuel Akanji? Kind of obvious, that one, isn't it? John Stones in midfield. Rodri alongside him, of course. Then, of course, in front of them, KDB. And in the middle, this is where it gets interesting, because against Liverpool at the Etihad last season, Foden played on the right and drifted in a little bit. He came inverted as a right-sided player that tucked in a little bit, with Bernardo Silva being a fixed central player. I think we stick with Foden this time. You know, keep him in the middle of the pitch. Start him in the middle, keep him in the middle, play him in the middle, and let's make use of everything Phil Foden has been doing this season. Form-wise, sensational. Absolutely outrageous season from Phil Foden. Incredible. Phil Foden, in the middle. Please, get on that screen. Cheers. Now, on the right, I'm going to go with Bernardo Silva. Up top, of course, Erling Haaland. Now, on the left, this is where it gets debatable now for City. I think this is where there's huge questions that need answering on this left-hand side. Like I said, we've seen Nunes out there lately. We've even saw Alvarez play out there in the last game in the Champions League against Copenhagen. You've got Doku as an option as well. You've got Oscar Bob as an option for this game. What would Grealish be fit? He could play there. Oscar Bob against Conor Bradley, I quite like that. I actually quite like that. I think Doku's form lately hasn't been great. Oscar Bob did play pretty much the full game against Copenhagen in the week, though. So I think it comes down to whether Doku's 100% fit or not. If he's got any sort of niggling injury whatsoever, then no, don't risk him. His form has not been great. Will the occasion be a lot for Jeremy Doku to handle? Because he's gone into his shell a little bit in recent games. In the Manchester derby, Jeremy Doku had an absolute stinker, and that was a high-octane, super emotional football match that he shrunk in that game. He shrunk. This will be 10 times worse. 10 times worse. So can Doku mentally handle Anfield? I have my concerns. To be honest. Alvarez, a little bit the same, to be honest. I feel like lately his form's been a little bit up and down. He's been pulled and pushed into different positions. He's not really held down a position as his own in the last 5 or 6 games. So that's an infuriating position. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Oscar Bob. I'm not sure he's going to play him, though. It depends on the injury news for Doku. But I am going to go with Oscar Bob on that left-hand side, which, I mean, you could swap Bernardo Silva and Oscar Bob, to be honest, and put the experience of Bernardo Silva against Conor Bradley and have the fresh power and pace of Oscar Bob against Robertson. That could work in City's favour. Now, how the game's going to get played is interesting, and why Ederson is going to play a big role. So let's put players into their position. So let's assume Manchester City have the ball. What we won't see is this. We won't see none of that. We won't see any of this, what I've just done with the back three there, with Walker, Ruben Diaz, and Nathan Ake being so incredibly split. You know, I just can't see that happening. Against Liverpool at the Etihad, it was very narrow. We kept them fairly tucked in, one to prevent the counter-attack and close the channels, and that's the majority of the reason, in truth. But what Liverpool did last season, their press was really good, but where we can use the emotion against them is because Darwin Núñez sort of gets in front of Rodri, Luis Diaz and Mo Salah looking after the two potential wide players in Walker and Nathan Ake. If John Stones offers us another midfielder, McAllister pushes forward, Endo sitting in front of Haaland, and Kevin De Bruyne, and Phil Foden being looked after by Szoboszlai. So you almost end up with Endo, looking after Kevin De Bruyne. You almost end up with their box looking after our box in the middle, in which case you almost allow Ruben Diaz to have the ball a little bit. In which case you can bring Ederson into the game. And if you can bring Ederson into the game and bait Liverpool out with an attack, and you bring him forward with the ball, it'll be so interesting to see if Ederson is being trusted with that football early on. And will the emotion get to Liverpool? Will Darwin Núñez think, yeah, I've got to charge down Ederson? Because if you attack Ederson, if Núñez sprints at Ederson, then his job will be to have the rest of the team joining him in the press. Because one player doesn't join in that press, then one player is going to be free, and it's going to split Liverpool wide open. So Darwin Núñez coming forward to Ederson will free up Ruben Diaz, and the dominoes start to tumble in that pitch, which is why I think Ederson always seems to get so much of the ball against Liverpool. It's not an unfamiliar pattern that's taken place in previous games. We do try to get Ederson on the ball, and we give him that ball early. You'll see it early in the first couple of minutes. That ball will be played back to Ederson, and it'll be see what they do. Let's see what Liverpool do. Let's size up what the tactics are of what Liverpool are going to present Manchester City. Because if we can outnumber them at the back and break their lines, whether Rodri or John Stones dropping deep and receiving the ball, and that therefore is going to force Szoboszlai out. And if they press like that, then it's great in the press, but then Szoboszlai, Endo's got to come forward, and then Phil Foden, big pocket of space here. Big pocket of space for him. And you know Ederson, he can just ping one over the top. Just ping one over. With his vision and his distribution, he can do that. He can find that pass. And then you've got the dominoes, like I said, the dominoes will start to tumble if Ederson's used effectively. But if they ignore Ederson, that's their best bet. That's Liverpool's best bet. When we have the ball, I would ignore Ederson if I was Liverpool. I would say, have the ball, mate. See what you can do. Try a long ball. Try it long. Because Konate and Van Dijk versus Haaland, to be honest, as good as and big and powerful as Erling Haaland is, Van Dijk and Konate are winning most of those battles because they're even bigger and stronger. Van Dijk in the air, no one beats Van Dijk in the air. You know, so you don't want to be playing that long ball up to Erling Haaland. You want to be playing those low trajectory passes into midfield, bypassing the press, and into your Kevin De Bruyne's and into Phil Foden. That's how we win this game. How Liverpool win this game is with moments of brilliance from Darwin Núñez, who's on form, and Mo Salah, of course. It's going to be an absolute incredible game. Luis Diaz, by the way, who's hit and miss at the minute. I feel like one game he looks sensational, the next game not so good. You're just hoping it's not a worldie, some brilliant dribbling ability of Mo Salah scoring a goal of the season contender, or a refereeing decision. I would like the game to be played fairly. I would like the game to be, let's talk about the football at the end of the game. That is what I ultimately want to see. But what an amazing game it's going to be. I will be doing a watch long, so come and join me for that. 3:45 kickoff, the unusual time in the UK, but come and join me. It's going to be feisty. Let's get into them Scousers. Let's fucking give it them. Let's absolutely nail them to our masts, and let's fly that flag high at the top of the Premier League. We go if we beat this Scouse bunch. Come on, City, let's do it. Come and join me. Let me know in the comments what your predictions are. I'm going to go with 2-2. I'm going to go with 2-2, and I would take a draw. To be honest, I would accept a draw. I'd be happy with a draw because I feel like Liverpool could drop points elsewhere this season. So could we. So could we. It's a very simple statement to make. But I'd take a draw right now because a loss would be too big, and I feel like we'd be the happier of the two with a draw. What do you think? Get in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up Silver.